Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to try and do a kind of cozy November wrap up with you today. Foster's come to say hi. I filmed my first Ulysses live chat today, but I know not everyone is interested in that, and I thought I'm going to do a reading wrap up. I haven't done one of these for a while. I haven't done a lot of them in 2020. I apologise. Reading has been a very odd thing for me this year. It's not been as stabilising and constant as it would be in other years. And I haven't felt as able to wrap up what I'm reading and speak about things eloquently the way I would want to in my wrap-ups. And that's why there's been a bit of a gap. But I'm going to have a go at doing one now, and I feel like I've read like an average amount for me in November. So yeah, hopefully the lighting and the sound and everything is okay. I just thought it'd be nice to have the main lights off and some Christmassy things on and try and bring a bit of cheer to this cold evening. Cool. I'm going to start with my DNFs for November. I DNF'd two books. I DNF'd The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and I really wanted to like this. Like, I badly wanted to like this book. It's a horror novel. It's the only horror novel I tried to read this year. And it's about a group of Native Americans who go on, like, historically have gone on this elk hunt, killed this elk, it had a baby inside it, terrifying elk creature comes and follows them. I didn't find the terrifying elk creature scary, and B, I just couldn't hack the writing style at all, and I really wanted to love this. I'm torn as to whether or not at some point next year I'd buy myself the Need to try and get that creepy feeling in, because I was sad to miss out on it, but I just really didn't love it. I think I got like nearly 100 pages in before I DNF'd, but it wasn't doing it. And the next one I DNF'd was very sad. I really thought I was going to like this, and I really didn't like it, and I really tried. I read it in hard copy and on audiobook, and that is Breast and Eggs by Makiko Kawakami. I really honestly tried with this one. I got through the first bit, so I've kind of heard that there's two, like there's a tacked on bit, which kind of feels like a separate book. I was still in our first family. It's a couple of sisters, and her daughter who's mute, one of the sister's daughters, and the sister who has the daughter really wants to have a boob job, and I engaged with this for a while. My brain started yelling at me that whilst this book was trying to do something clever in terms of marking women's journeys through their lives and looking at the pressure around women's bodies, I couldn't help but feel to a certain point that it was making me feel like women were their bodies, and that made me feel very uncomfortable. And I actually tried to really re-listening to it from the beginning to get a different viewpoint and see if I was just being overly judgmental, and I couldn't do it. I could not hack this one. I had to DNF it, which makes me really sad because I really thought I was going to enjoy it. I did also, which I didn't know before I picked it up, there's a really like transphobic scene that happens in a public like bath, which I really didn't like, and I'd not known that when I was picking it up. So the combination of this unsettled feeling of the book trying to do something clever and talk about the pressure on women, but then it backfiring for me and me feeling like it was implying that women are their bodies in a non-clever and ironic way, and then the transphobia, I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for me, and I had to DNF that one too. Then on to fiction. The first one is Monogamy, which I enjoyed the process of reading a lot, but afterwards I don't remember a lot of it. So if I tell you what I do remember is that it follows a couple from sort of the very beginnings of their marriage, the wife after she's divorced her first husband, and it follows a relationship between this man and this woman throughout their life. The man is basically a book character. Like, he didn't feel that real. He was like this enormous jolly man that everybody lit up with when he came into a room, but he was obviously, from the title, not particularly good with monogamy. And it was about their relationship over a really long period of time. The bit of the book I enjoyed the most was the bits that spoke about grief. And I enjoyed the process of reading it a lot. I just don't think a lot of it stuck with me. So I don't know how much I'd recommend it. I didn't dislike it at any point, and reading it was quite compelling. I kept going back to read it again. being drawn to read it again. But overall, it didn't leave me with that much in my head. So that's Monogamy. This ball is taking a beating. And then we have Daddy by Emma Cline, which is a short story collection. I enjoyed this more than the girls, I would say, but it is for a very specific audience type. These are a book of short stories about very nasty men in lots of different contexts, and I don't think you're supposed to like anyone. So it's going to depend going in whether A, you like reading about lots of men, albeit written from a woman's perspective, and B, whether or not you want to have likeable foci within your short stories. Foci. And I liked it. I don't think it's like a standout for the year, but I did enjoy it. I liked what it was doing. But if you don't like those two things, you won't like Daddy. I still want to keep reading her. There's something about Emma Cline and her writing that from Girls and from Daddy, I want just to dig a little bit more and see just what's quite underneath. It feels like there's something inside that needs to be polished, and I'll really like it. So yeah, that was Daddy. Then I got round to reading Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier, and I actually really liked it. I read it in like one long Sunday afternoon and then 2 evenings. It's really quick, really pacey. I had on like a YouTube video of like a fire crackling and like library sounds, and it was good fun. And I think that's kind of what I wanted. I'd read lots of things that had felt like hard work, and I think Ulysses will feel like hard work, and this just felt like very easy. I could imagine reading this as like a, teenager, that kind of just went in and it was fine. It didn't stand out to me the same way Rebecca did, but it was kind of creepy and melodramatic in all the right ways. So yeah, I did like Jamaica Inn, and I may well pick up Frenchman's Creek, which lots of people when I hauled Jamaica Inn said, oh no, don't bother, read the other one. So yeah, at some point when I need another like quick, quick like pacey, plotty book, then I might go back to du Maurier again. And then the last one I read was Real Life by Brandon Taylor, which I really liked. I kind of knew I was going to like it going in. It's about a group of college students who are all friends, though I would say the book looks at how closely are they really friends and in what ways are their friendships real and fake. And we follow one guy in the middle of it who is gay and black in a college where the majority of people are, well, I think he says actually that he's the only black guy in like his whole year and function. And there's a scene in it where he sees a black girl in a crowd of white people and is like waves to be like, I know where you're at. So there is racial tension in terms of the expectations put upon him. There is some conversation around like white women's tears in there. But I love the setting and the place and the ideas around it, and the kind of other elements feed in to make something that's just interesting, and I did really like it. I really enjoyed it. I think this is probably one of my top books of the year. It is definitely one I'd recommend. It's one I'm going to gift this year. So I'm just really happy that this one met my expectations. Whilst Breast and Eggs didn't, this one kind of was what I was hyping myself up for. Then non-fiction, I read the majority of Essential Essays by Adrienne Rich, though I skipped a few. So I hadn't read her poetry, and the ones where she's talking about her own poetry or poets that I'd never read, I didn't read all of them, though I've read more than I didn't. I probably skipped like 5 essays, I would say, out of the whole, and even of those I'd skipped, I probably started and went, I'm not going to get enough from this to dedicate the time to it. But the essays I most liked were the ones about women. There was one called Motherhood and Daughterhood, I think. Yeah, Motherhood and Daughterhood, and another called Anger and Tenderness, that I really enjoyed. I think that those were definitely my favourite ones, and I think like if you're more into poetry than I am, or you have like better knowledge of poetry overall, then you might enjoy this book overall. But I would definitely recommend those essays in the centre of this. I think they have a subtitle. Hang on. So it's called Of a Woman Born, Motherhood as an Experience and an Institution. And I definitely recommend that portion of this book. Then I listened to Guns, Germs and Steel by Jared Diamond. I wasn't intending on picking this one up to listen to, but guys, the text, hopefully you can see, it is minuscule. And when I bought it, I was like, oh, I can't do that. I want cozy lighting like this. I don't want to be here like, trying to squint my eyes to see. So I listened to it whilst I did my paint by numbers, which is a thing I'm doing whilst Tom's out in the evenings, and the evenings are very long and very dark. So I listened to this one pretty much all in nights where Tom was away, or weekends where he was working doubles. And I did like it. I liked the way that it was looking at history as a science and the exploration of human history over a long period of time. And whilst he says it's very brief, it didn't feel that brief. My main criticism is that by the time you get toward the end, he does a lot of recapping and a lot of like this is what we learned earlier. And when you've read it in quite a short period of time, it can be very repetitive. So you just read a chapter and then he'll start by saying, in chapter 12, we learned that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I was just here. Like, continue with your knowledge. So I would anticipate it was maybe intended to be read over a longer period of time than I read it over. But the content I did really like. I can see why it's like been popular and why people have really enjoyed it. And I think it's actually pretty accessible as well, despite the appearance of the font. If you found one with a more sensible font size, I think it'd be a pretty easy read, even if you read it on paper. But the audiobook experience was also quite nice. And the last two I have for non-fiction were definitely my favourite non-fictions of the month. The first I read was That Wild Country by Mark Kenyon. I've been binge listening to stuff about America's national parks recently, and this book popped up like in a list, which I wasn't looking for. Like, I wasn't looking for national park books, and then this one arrived and I was like, okay, cool. This is basically a guy who loves national parks, visiting national parks, talking about how they came about and what the threats to them are today. I would imagine from this that he leans more right-leaning than left-leaning, but he is cautious in this book to be doing a kind of not a partisan approach to the uses of national parks. So he uses them to hike and hunt, and sort of says that there's other uses for them, and we see him struggle with the other kinds of uses people might make of the park, but fundamentally say it's here for everyone. And it was just some lovely nature writing, and I struggled to visualise things and see things, but when I was reading this I could be there, and that was lovely. And it was in lockdown, when I'm so used to these walls of my home, it felt so freeing and relaxing and lovely to get these snapshots into a place that just felt so different. So I would really recommend this one. I loved it, and I'm going to try and find more good books about nature writing and national parks, because that's a little itch my brain now wants to scratch. And then the last one I read for this month was Hidden Valley Road, which you probably know because I think this is the last one I filmed about in a vlog maybe. And this is about a family who have lots of children. I think they have 10 children, and six of the boys are diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this book looks at the trajectory of this family and also the scientific advances made in relation to schizophrenia throughout the lifetime of this family, and the management of it today. I thought it was really interesting to see that research still continues today, and the kind of research that still continues. And this was a good one to share with Tom. For those who don't know, Tom is training to be a mental health nurse, so he sees people with schizophrenia every single day, and it was really interesting for me to see more of the how schizophrenia works, or the how they think it works, explored in this book, when I kind of know from my own inpatient experiences and from other stuff I've read about more of the what it looks like than the how it works. And it was a really good book. I guess I get why this is on so many top non-fictions of the year. So that's everything I read in November. It was quite a lot. I'm quite proud. I felt like, as much as it's been harder without the daylight and the going outside and stuff, I feel like it's picked my reading back up again, kind of through force. And I'm really glad that I've managed to get back into it and have it through the winter. I think that means a lot to me. So hopefully you've enjoyed hearing about these books, and you might pick some of them up or maybe ask them on your Christmas lists. But I'm hoping December's a good month too. I'm mostly going to be reading Ulysses, but I might try and get some other bits in if I can. I think my brain is stuck on Ulysses, so I might have to separate it and be like, you can read your Ulysses for the day and then read something else if you want. because I have a few things I'd like to read this month too, if I can. So yeah, I'll see you guys again soon in another video, and look after yourselves until then. Bye!